Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the show. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, the Podcast Index, and Podcasting 2.0. We'd really appreciate if you download Fountain, find us there, and support us via Value for Value. We hope you enjoy the show. Happy listening. Tonight's guest is Yolanda Walker Schufford. I first met Yolanda in 2014, working together at a company called Cash America. Got to see Yolanda in action, poise, grace, an amazing communicator. Well, what I got to learn through that engagement is that Yolanda came out of the media. She was a news anchor for many, many years. I really love Yolanda. She's just one of the brightest personalities you'll meet. You'll hear in the episode, she says, I'm social. She is social. She can talk to anybody. She has an amazing background, been on an amazing journey, is a giver. And that's what I think I love about her the most. So let's dive in. Welcome, Yolanda. How are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for having me, Vic. I'm so excited for this.
Excitement. Boy, multiply that times 10. First of all, when I reached back out to you and asked you to be on the show, I'm like, she's like, haven't heard from this guy in a million years. Now he's asking me to be on the show. And I'm like, it's Yolanda. She's going to say yes.
Absolutely.
Right? We got that. And so when you responded super positively and you were like, I saw that smile, by the way, when you said, oh, this is nice. Vic and I are going to get chat for a little while. So thank you so much for taking time and coming on the show. Thank you. Why don't you take a minute and just tell the audience who you are?
So Yolanda Schufford was Yolanda Walker for many years, as Vic knows. But I'm the Chief Communications and Public Affairs Officer at Beyond Finance. And I've been in this role for about 4 years, but been in the communications industry for all of my, I say all my adult life, but really all of my life, because I've been speaking for a long, long time. And we'll go through that. But I'm now a wife. I am a mother to 2 adult daughters. They're mine by marriage, but you couldn't tell me that I didn't birth them.
They are
I love
lucky.
them to death. Yeah, I love them to death. I do.
I bet.
One just graduated college. The other one's a couple of years away, and they're off and running. It's been interesting seeing them come into the age that they are now of adulthood. Married to a wonderful man whom I met at church through a mutual friend, and we've been rolling together for the last 6 years. I married late. I married at 46, so this has been an interesting journey, which I really like the marriage later in life. I don't know if I would have survived growing
Most don't.
Up with someone.
Most don't, Yolanda. The stats aren't with you on that one, so you might be the smartest person in play here.
So that's me in a nutshell. But really, what I am is a person who is a mentor, someone who is a religious, a spiritual person. Come from a great family. I really believe in giving back. I love to serve. I love to work. So retirement and all that stuff, I don't even think about it. But I try to keep as positive as I can about life and not taking things too seriously. And my road to success, has really been paved with great memories and wonderful opportunities. And so I'm just the person that I'm when I look in the mirror, I'm proud of the person that I see.
Man, that's unbelievable. And going back to the late marriage, late in life, you sound lucky. And I would just say that I'm looking forward to meeting your husband just to remind him that he's a lucky one.
Yeah.
I bet he does. I bet everybody does.
Yeah.
They'd have to be A-list to be with you for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So I expect nothing less.
Yes.
Hey, this is the part of the show where I ask the same question every time. And I say, hey, I've gotten to work with you for a number of years. I got to watch you operate. I got to learn about your time on television.
Yes.
Right. I got to follow your career over the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, I followed it.
Great.
I followed it. I always saw when you were on LinkedIn, where you're going, what you were doing next, what you're up to. what was happening. And I had such fond memories of our time working together. You know what a lot of people like to hear is that when you're not in the room, what do people say about you? And I would say that all the things you just said about yourself, that's what people say about you, Yolanda. It's really true. And I know through my time in working with you, it was a lot of fun. It was great. You were very professional. You showed up every day. It was great. And you have a lot of these traits. Like, so you have real strong confidence. You're just a great communicator. I know about your time on television. And you're great in the corporate setting. You know how to navigate all those things. You didn't pop out of the womb with those things. You learned and you acquired those things. What I think the audience would be really interested in is, how the heck did you get there? Like, take us back as far as you're comfortable taking us. Tell us about the things you learned, the lessons, the hard ones, the easy ones. Tell us your story. How did you get to this spot?
So I think I want to take you back to childhood.
Okay.
I was born to two great parents who are still married to this day, 54 years.
God bless.
I couldn't ask for better parents, and I had two brothers. So I was the only girl. I was in the middle of two boys. Great position to be in.
I'll say.
So in some respects, you're a mama's girl because you're the only girl, but I'm really a daddy's girl.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
my guy. And both, I have really wonderful relationships with both, but I am daddy's girl. And so I learned to see life through, in many respects, a man's eyes, right? Because men dominated our household. But I learned how to be a woman from my mom. She was strong. She was determined. And my dad was the provider, and he was the good advice man and great with money. And so we lived a really great childhood. I mean, they made sure that they had not only time for us, but time for themselves. But they put a lot into us. I mean, they were at every game. They supported. They were in booster club. Everything that you could think of. They were there for us, and they showed us what supportive parents really look like. They put us in great neighborhoods.
Where
With
did you grow
wonderful
up?
people. I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Oh, wow. Great.
So my dad was part of the Great Migration from Mississippi up to Indianapolis in the 50s. My
Okay.
mom was born in Indianapolis, and I was there until I was 29 years old. But coming up, I remember back in sixth grade, at the end of sixth grade, my mom said, "When they have cheerleader tryouts, I want you to try out." And I was like, "I don't want to be a cheerleader. What are you talking about?" And then cheerleader, they make the announcement so fun over the intercom. I was like, "Well, shoot, I'm going to go out. My friends are going out. I'm going to go out for cheerleading." And so I made it. And that really, Vic, was the start of the confidence building, the being in front of the crowd, to not wanting to be like anyone else. When you're a cheerleader, you get special privileges. You're out,
Sure.
you're close to the team. And, we were fortunate enough in high school years to win the basketball state championship in Indiana, which was basketball country.
Yeah.
And so
you're about one step away from Jesus at that point.
And so I always felt special. No one told me I wasn't. So, and I kept defying odds. Just making it, doing things that people weren't doing. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, so people didn't look like me. So climbing up and doing things and getting recognized and noticed, and hey, I see you, was huge for me.
Yeah.
And so I went out for cheerleading, and that was it. I mean, and from there, I started communicating. I was on speech team, and so as the head cheerleader one week, I mean, because we traded captains every week.
Yeah.
Nobody wants
My
to.
girls cheered, so I'm hip to what goes on there.
Yeah. We were doing a 50s week, because we were in the playoffs for basketball, and so I often would imitate great people I would see. And so I remember the movie Stand By Me, and there was this radio DJ.
Yeah.
And we were doing 50s or 60s week or something. We had the poodle skirts on. I said, "Well, I'm going to do the announcement like I'm a radio DJ, back in the 60s. And so I turn around, do the announcement, and bebop, and, we're doing all this. And I turn around, there are like 6 teachers standing back behind me. And one of them came up to me and said, "You have to go on the radio." And I said, "No, I don't want to go on the radio.
That's
I want
so
to be on
great.
TV. I want to be on TV."
Even better.
Oh, no, no, no. You're going to see me, you know?
Yeah. That's called
And
modeling success, by the way. It's something I talk all the time about.
hmm
I'll interject just a slight thing.
sure.
My nephew's been living with us for the last year, and he's a really good young golfer. And so every time he's trying to figure things out, I go, why are we making this so hard?
hmm
Tiger Woods. I go, you want to figure out how to get great? Let's just look up what he did.
Yeah.
That guy not only had the greatest level of talent, but it was even oddly, outmatched by his discipline and his mindset
Yes.
and his effort.
hmm
Talent was probably 25%. And for that guy, 75% was what he did with it.
hmm
And so I love to hear that you modeled success at a
I did.
very young age. You're like,
hmm
that works over there. I'm going to do that.
Let's try
That's
it.
cool. It's
And
great.
I wasn't afraid to try it. And so that happened. And then I was the first person at my high school to do the commencement speech who wasn't the valedictorian. Now,
What?
I was smart, but I didn't apply. I was social. I mean, I loved every social thing you could possibly think of. I'd be sitting in algebra doing cheerleader formations, things like that. I didn't want to,
Man.
school wasn't my thing. And so I told the vice principal, I want to be commencement speaker. Well, that only goes to valedictorian. So they ended up having tryouts, Vic.
Come
I
on.
convinced them to do a tryout. I won. And I gave a great
Wasn't a fair
speech.
fight.
It wasn't. It was, and
No.
the valedictorian, salutatorian, they were in the room.
Wow.
But I went in there with the confidence that I was them.
Wow.
I didn't have the grades, but I had the speaking ability, I had the talent, I had the confidence. And I remember walking out there and saying, if I don't get it, I know I did the very best I could do, and then I got it.
This came
And
from your
so,
parents, right?
yeah.
Like all this came from your parents.
Oh, the confidence, the support,
Yeah.
the just their presence. They were present parents,
Mhm.
So it was great. And so I give this commencement speech, and the dean of students at the college that I'm going to happens to be in the audience. Calls my
Wow.
home the next week and says, I want her to work in my office. And so that really is the start of, and I thought, well, gosh, I don't want to, my parents didn't want me to work because they know if I go to college, I work.
Yeah.
That's social,
Yeah.
I'm going to be out there doing stuff. And they want, my mom was very strict, and my dad, hey, grades have to be this or you're coming home. I didn't want to come home. So I went to Ball State University. David Letterman's our claim to fame.
Yeah.
He bought all of our equipment in news. We had an awesome news department. I graduated in telecommunications, which is what news was then.
Yeah.
And it was great. And I used him as a great reference, right? And I ended up doing the very thing out of college that I didn't want to do, and that was radio.
You did do radio.
Oh, I did radio for 2.5 years.
Okay. What
And I
did you do on the radio?
I was news. I was a
You were
news
news.
anchor. I was a news
Okay.
anchor and reporter. So I anchored 6 newscasts a day, and I was the night reporter, and I would report for the morning anchor. So he would have some stories when he came in the morning, and then he would report for me. And I did that for 2 years. In the meantime, still wanting to get into TV. I went. That's what I went to school for. I fell in love with news. I wanted to make sure, but this radio station was great. One of my professors, I went to him. I said, "Hey, man, I'm getting ready to graduate. I have no job. What can you do?" It's like, "Let me make a call."
What was
And
the
so
call?
I
What
get
was the call sign of the radio station?
WWKI. It was a country western station in
Both
Kokomo,
kinds of
Indiana.
music, country and western.
Country western, and it was in
Okay.
Kokomo, Indiana,
Okay.
45 minutes north of Indianapolis.
This is
Um,
Yolanda, WWKI. We play both
WWKI.
kinds of music, country and western.
What am I doing here? What am I doing here? And I was like, I'll never like country music. Now I grew to love country music.
Yeah, I bet you
Actually,
did.
during my time there. But I kept pushing for the TV, and I kept in touch with, we did internships, and so I did an internship at the station in Indianapolis, And I went back to the news director and said, hey, I really need to put together a tape, because we did tapes back then. I need to put
Sure.
together a tape.
Yeah.
And, I don't have any equipment. And he was like, well, did you keep in touch with any of the photographers? Well, I'm social. So of course I did.
Yeah.
He said, well, I'll tell you what, you can use one of the photographers if they're willing to do your tape, and so I found a friend to edit it. And the day we finished editing the tape, I won an award, and I had to go to this award ceremony with the Associated Press. The only seat that was left was next to the news director who would end up hiring me, right? Well,
Come on.
he's 2 seats over. He's 2 seats over.
Okay.
His assistant sitting next to me. There's no more seats. All the tables are reserved. So my colleague and I from radio, we won this award for a series that we did on school board something. I don't know what it was.
Okay.
And I sit down, and the news, the lady next to me is the newsroom admin, and she's Teresa King, the late Teresa King. She's passed away now. God rest her soul, but she was wonderful. She started talking to me. What are you doing in radio? I'm like, well, I want to get into TV. I don't know how to do it. I'm trying to send tapes out. We just finished a tape today, and then the news director hears this conversation, and so we start chatting, and I turn it up.
You're social.
The charm goes up. And I'm like, opportunity. When are you going to get to sit next to the news director? But it's the 24th market in the country out of 200 markets. There's no way this guy is going to look at me right. He said, you got a tape? I said, yeah, I got a tape. In fact, I just finished a tape today. Have it on my desk Monday morning.
Oh, man.
So I drive it to the station, because I don't have to be on the air until 1 o'clock in Kokomo. And I would just come home every weekend. That was my thing. Come home every weekend. Who wants to stay in Kokomo, Indiana on the weekend? Shout out to Kokomo. Love Kokomo, but it was not the happening place for a 22-year-old.
Yeah.
So I put on his desk, and Tuesday comes around, Wednesday comes around, Thursday comes around, no call. So I was like, I'm going to call him. He gave me his card. He's got his direct line. It's back when you had access to people.
Yeah.
And I called him, and I said, hey, John Butte was his name. Great John Butte. He's still alive, still, out there. I think I would send him a message on Facebook not so long ago. Was one of the best news directors I ever worked with in the industry. And I said, hey, John, I didn't get a call back, and I dropped the tape off. Did you receive it? It's like, yeah, I was waiting for you to call me.
Okay.
Come to my office. I want to talk to you. And so they end up hiring me as a weekend. So this station was an NBC station. They had the Olympics, the 96 Olympics on their air.
Okay.
And they were a station with a lot of money, privately owned, sent a whole group of folks down to Atlanta. This was during the Atlanta Olympics, the great bombing and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And they were short-staffed on the weekend. So he said, hey, come and fill in on the weekend for us. And so I did that for 6 months. And then I went to him and I said, hey, man, I hear you're going on to corporate. You're not going to be the news director anymore. Are you going to hire me? Before I asked him point blank, you're going to hire me? He's like, no, I'm not going to hire you. I'm going to let the new news director make that determination. I said, okay, fine. So I started shopping my tape. And I shopped it to South Bend, Indiana. Great station that was owned by Notre Dame. It was the NBC station there. I met with Ellen Crook. I'll never forget Ellen Crook, the news director there. And she says, hey, I know the news director that you've been working for. Do you mind if I give him a call as a reference? I said, no, he's not going to hire me. I think it would be a great idea for you to call him. Well, of course, she calls him and he calls me. Don't you dare take that job. And so they start bidding.
Come on.
Oh, I'm not.
Wow.
And so I ended up like you could be a big fish in a small pond and go to South Bend and be the hero, right? Because I've already been on big market television. Or I could be this small fish amongst all these very talented and seasoned reporters in the top 24 market and just try to fill my way.
Yeah.
Because I've been playing TV on the weekends and doing radio during the week. So I did that for 6 months. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take my chances, be the small fish.
Smart move.
And learn around, people who have been doing this for a long time. And so I did that. And that was the launch of my TV career. And then I did that for 5.5 years at WTHR in Indianapolis. Great times, great station, great staff. 2 news directors I worked under, and then I wanted to go further in my career in news, and then ended up in the top 5 market, which was Dallas, Texas, and worked for WFAA.
There's something to what you said about being the small fish in a big pond, and really leaving your ego aside.
Yeah.
Because you can go, flex, right? And get out there and do this stuff. But it's funny, I just had a conversation with my wife this morning. And and I said, all these things come clear in your life and you try to apply the lessons learned. And two things have really been seeping into my brain here in the last couple of days. And there are a couple of sayings, I didn't write them or come up with them, but they come up in social feeds, or I read a book or this and that. And one is, you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with.
Mm.
Okay. So if you really unpack that and you think about that for a second, you could have gone to the small market and your average would have come down.
Yeah.
Your personal average would have come down. Sure, you'd have been the best, the most experienced, and that feels good. Ego pumped up, you flex, right? You do all the thing. But when you apply that, you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with, your personal average would have come down. That's just the way it is. My brother will tell you a similar story about me, but he always he always liked playing with the big kids. That's what because my brother was 5 years older than me, and I was always like chasing his tail. I wanted to be like in that mix. And I took that and I ran with it most recently. And I was talking to my wife this morning. I said, hey, not only are you the average of 5 people you spend most time with, your life is the result of the last 10 conversations you have, or the 10 most common conversations you have in your life, because words matter.
Yes.
And so if you think about, if you're gossiping or you're complaining or you're talking about somebody who did something that's trivial, but it got you, all twisted up and this and that, that's your life. That's your life. So you have to pick the conversations you have very, very carefully. And by the way, this podcast is filling my cup, right? Not only with you, but with everybody I have on, because these are included now in the last 10 conversations I had, and they are lifting my life and my spirit and everything about my presence. But you laid down a real world example of, you might not have known or heard of that quote at the time, but you made a very conscious decision to say, I'm going to surround myself with people that will raise me. And if there's any nugget to be left behind here, this is one at this point, 20 minutes into our conversation, that surround yourself by the best, even if it means you're the worst, you will rise as a result of it. So I go back to you now. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, hopefully those folks that you surround yourself want to help you.
Oh yeah.
And I was surrounded by people. Now, they were tough on me. I mean, it wasn't easy being the small fish, because now I'm on the night show. I'm on the 11 o'clock news, which is the big show.
That's the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the 2 youngest reporters in the newsroom, me and Jeremy Rogowski, are sitting there. He went on to be a great reporter. He's at KHOU in Houston, and phenomenal career. We're the babies, and we're on the night beat, and so, but it was great because, we just pushed and pushed and pushed, and we had great leadership, and they poured into us and they invested into us. And there were times when I remember the main anchor, John Stair, came to my desk and said, that wasn't a good live shot. And I was like, dang, what did I do? Or, you looked cold out there. I need you not to look cold. We are on TV to deliver the news. And I was like, dang. But instead of, and I often, Vic, have to go back to that 24 at this time, 25, 26-year-old self, because I was so humble that I received it all. I didn't say, yes, I did a good job. You can't tell me I didn't. I said, oh my gosh, let me watch that back. You are sure enough right. I didn't do the best that I could have done. I even rewrote a script one time. One of the producers said, hey, that story missed the mark. And I was like, would this have been better? And so that didn't, I won't say that stayed with me all of my career, Vic.
Yeah.
But I was, I guess, keen enough to know that I was the small fish, and they're only telling you this so that you could be better.
Yeah.
And so it led to, and then my relationships again helped me get to Dallas. A good friend of mine, Debbie Denman, helped me get down here. She had already moved from Indianapolis down here. She's from Denton.
Okay.
She said, I'll walk your tape in.
Wow.
News director wouldn't call me. I said, I'm flying down. David.
How old were you at this time?
I was 28, 29.
Okay.
And I said, I'm just going to fly down. I'll fly down and visit you, and hopefully David will see me. And he
Did you
did.
have that? Did you have that that mental and emotional awareness about being the small fish at the time?
Yes.
Did you consciously say it out loud, like this is where I need to be, or was it situational?
No, I didn't. I knew it, and I knew it because it was
Okay.
the reality. I didn't let it define me, though.
Yeah.
I had a great mentor. She took me under her wing. She was on the crime beat. When she got sick, I took over the crime beat. And so, again, I learned from her. I'm going to be her,
Yeah. Yep.
before I knew who I was, So, um, and so I knew it enough where I still had the confidence, like, I'm going to get on the air and rock this.
Yeah.
However, I'm not a fool.
Yeah.
I know I'm 26 versus 36, 46,
Yeah.
or whoever,
But you're in the room.
I'm in the room,
You're in the room.
and you're going to know who I am.
Yeah. You're in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason you're in the room.
Yeah.
There's a reason you're there. And if you can recognize that, you remind me of something short that happened in my life. The very first boardroom I ever stepped in
Mm-hmm.
was at a bank in New York in Staten Island called Staten Island Savings Bank.
Okay.
Very old school boardroom. Such so that the board members had a brass plate nailed in on the table where everybody
Of their
sat.
names? Oh, wow.
Names are on the boardroom table. Okay, talk about old school.
Wow.
Guy who was a CEO and chair of the board there was a guy named Harry Daugherty. Gem of a guy. First job out of college for him was working at this bank, and he worked his way up to being the CEO and run the bank. Just a great story. But I was very intimidated.
Really?
And everybody's giving their updates and doing all of these things. And we're sitting there, and I'm about 2 people away from having to give my update. And I just looked around the room and I just said, I'm the youngest person here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're about to ask me for an update in the state of the state on where we are with our technology, where we're going in the future. And they're asking me. Like, there's a reason I'm here, right? There's a reason I'm here. At first I was intimidated, but there was a switch that flipped. And the switch that flipped was, hey, I'm here for a reason. I got a lot to learn. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to be smart. I'm going to come up. And it sounds like, for me, it came a little bit later, came to you earlier, but that's not surprising because the more studies I do on men versus women, the men have this whole frontal lobe late delay, right? So we sometimes we don't get the shit for a long time, but we some of us, we get there. We get there. But
Sure.
all right, so now you're making your way to Dallas.
Yeah, I'm in Dallas. I'm rocking it. We're doing our thing. I'm learning. I'm now at the big station. I mean, this is top 5 market in the country, and the difference was almost like night and day because now I'm on stories where ABC is next to me and Entertainment Tonight is next to me, and it's not.
Wow.
This is there's the network has a bureau inside of the station,
Wow.
So you've got the sports teams, you got all kinds of stuff happening in Dallas, and just the way they did news was different. There would be sometimes 2 weeks I wouldn't make it on the air because
Why?
we had Powerhouse, we had bureaus in DC and Mexico and Austin and Frisco and Fort Worth, and all these people were fighting for time on the air, and you had I'm working around people who had been to the network and back. Maybe they worked for CBS News or ABC, and so you're fighting to get your little story on the air. And I remember the news director calling me and said, "Hey, you're not paid by the story that you do. So just keep your, keep your head up.
Okay.
You'll get on the air eventually, which you will." And then they shifted some stuff around. I ended up on the 10 o'clock news. So of course you're going to get on the air.
Yeah, of course.
But it was great. It was great for the time that it was. But I knew when my time had run out there, as far as I wasn't as motivated, I didn't love it as much. I still thought it was the greatest industry in the world, but I saw a shift of, are we really covering the news? Or are we just trying to bring people to the table? And when I left news, social media was coming onto the and you could just forecast. So I was one of the first ones to abandon the news industry in this market and then get into corporate America and make that another career that's successful. And so my friends, Michael Ray, Chris Hawes, I mean, some of those folks came to me and said, "Hey, I want to get out of the business too. How do I make this work?" And now hey, I'll tell you how to make it work, because I'm at Cash America, which I couldn't have landed better.
Yeah.
Could not have landed better. Hands down, the best company I ever worked at
Wow.
outside of news. Hands
Yeah.
down. GM Financial, close second.
Okay.
But Cash America, I mean, I cut my teeth in the PR, public relations, communications. Had a great mentor, Mary Jackson,
Yeah.
and I could not fill her shoes, but I could walk in her footsteps, and I did. I walked in her footsteps, and she took me along and showed me what it was like for somebody to really have my back.
That's amazing. Hey,
Mhm.
can we back up for a second?
Yeah, let's
Because you
back up.
said something that made my antennas go up. Social media hits. You know, you're
Yes.
not really. I think what I interpreted what you said is there's a little twist. You're not really. The focus isn't really on the news, right?
Mhm.
And so now, you know, we have a saying amongst my friends. Anytime we try to figure something out, it's just follow the money. You know, if you want to know what the root of it is, or you want to know what the intent of it is, or you want to know why somebody did something or didn't do something, that's usually large, right?
Mhm.
I'm not talking at a personal level, although it can apply there. You know, certainly at a corporate level, it's follow the money.
Mhm.
You know, and I think personally, this is just my own little Vicaroo personal opinion. I think that the traditional news media's got tired of seeing the National Enquirer eat their lunch with stories about UFOs and monsters with 7 heads and all the crazy stories they used to release. And they realized that falsities sold more than the actual truth.
Somewhat. I would agree
Okay.
with you somewhat. I think the emergence of 24-hour news and
Okay.
the fact that, of course, when I got out, social media wasn't being used as immediate as it was,
Right.
but it was going in that direction. And it's now, I don't have to wait until 5 or 6 o'clock to get my news when I can just get
Pow.
yeah. And we were doing too much. It was like, I need you to write the web story, and I need you to, and I'm like, okay, but where we used to spend time researching a story. I mean, I might get a story about something I knew nothing about, and I've got X amount of hours to research, go do the interviews, because we couldn't do virtual. We could do
Yeah.
phoners every now and then. It wasn't favorable, or TV, and they want people on camera. So you have to go interview each person that's in your story, or send the photographer out while you're writing, or um, and so it just, we had beats. We had city beats and crime beats and health beats and, all these beats, and I just saw them. Well, no, we're going to take such and such off the business beat, and he's going to be General Simon, and then and it's like, but wait a minute, where? And so now I think I wake up every day thinking there's a Bernie Madoff out there somewhere, and he will never get uncovered because the print industry is gone, pretty much. I mean, the print reports probably won't appreciate me saying that, but it's not the
Yeah.
same.
And the
The ones who
research
really had the
mechanism
time
has
to
been
dig, yeah.
squashed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's, you hear about this talked in the media all the time. It's more important to be first than right.
Yeah.
There are very few retractions, and what's really in the media has become so polarized.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you either got one side of the story and everybody joins up on that, or you get the other side of the story and you watch. I watch all the channels,
Uh-huh.
and I look at all this stuff, and I'm like, I scratch my head. I go,
It's
we're
an
just
editorial.
we're living in so many universes, and yeah, it used to be what we called op-ed, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, but that's all it is now. There
Yeah.
is, there's
There is
just
no,
nothing
yeah.
that comes out that's straight up the middle factual. It's very difficult.
Yeah. We weren't even allowed to make editor. I remember I made a personal comment at the end of one story once, and the news director was like, "Don't you ever do that.
Really? Oh,
No, we want
wow.
to give our personal opinion." And now your personal opinion
That's it. That's where
that's
the
it.
money
That's what
is.
it is now. So
That's where it is.
so I made the decision to leave, and well, back up even before then, halfway through my second contract at Channel 8, Mary Jackson reaches out to me
Okay.
at Catch America and says, I want to start this PR position. We've been watching you on the news. I did a story with Cash America too. That was
Okay.
some database that they had. I can't think of Leads Online. I think it was.
Okay.
I did the story.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, you guys got a good industry, good business, good industry. I can see where, it could be a little tricky sometimes reputation wise, and I'll do a good job on the story. And, this is a good database. It's a good thing. And so she said, hey, we've been watching you ever since that story. And this is your position if you want it. And I said, oh,
Wow.
no, Mary. She tells everybody she turned me down the first time.
That's great.
So I said, no. I said, I'm a news person. I believe in honoring contracts. I am a contract person. We work on contracts. I'm halfway between this contract. Well, then the management changed at the station.
Okay.
And I didn't want to change with it. And I'm not saying that they're good or bad or did anything wrong, but I just know me. And I know what I thrive in. And I saw a path out. And I tell everybody I made the decision to leave, but I did not go about it the right way. I was arrogant. That 26-year-old Vic that was humble out the door now.
You were sassy now.
Oh, I went into the directors. I'm not going to re-sign a contract. We don't even have to negotiate. Come September, I'm out. I didn't have a plan.
Okay.
I had no plan. Started saving money, so I was good there, but I didn't have a plan. And so I reached out to Mary and I said, hey, because I wasn't planning on getting out of the business. But where do you go from top 5 market? There's Philadelphia, Chicago, LA, New York. I don't know. And so I said, I'm just going to get out of the business. And I reached back out to Mary and she's like, oh my God, the position's open again. I don't know if I can hire for it, but get over here. Let's talk. And so we talked for a series of months. She hired me as a contractor because Dan wasn't sold.
Okay.
The FDM wasn't sold.
That's funny. Okay.
I
He wasn't sold on the role, or
he wasn't sold on the role because it didn't work. It didn't. The person didn't stay. So it was like,
tried this, not going to work.
What do I do?
Okay.
Is it really worth it to have this person? And then I come in with this, news background and friends in the industry, and I had to learn corporate America. I had to learn it because newsrooms are very raw.
Yeah, I bet.
Newsrooms are, they're you're yelling at each other 1 minute and you're going to have drinks another minute. And every day is new, in news, it doesn't matter how bad or good your story is. You start fresh every day and nobody holds grudges. You don't have time to hold a grudge because you got to get on the air the next day and something's happened. And
sounds exactly like corporate America.
Yeah.
Insert sarcasm.
Memories are longer in corporate America.
Big time. Insert sarcasm.
Oh, people remember stuff that you did way. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Big time.
And so I remember people telling me this is not a newsroom, so you got to dial it back a little bit. And you got to, and I was like, well, I got to be diplomatic. Okay, let's try that.
Before we jump into the corporate side, I want to pull you back into the news space.
Yes.
Do you have a piece that you did that you're most proud of, and that there was a story that you did that you're like, wow, this was my moment? Yeah,
there were several. When I was leaving, I got to sit down with Mark Cuban. When I was leaving, I had already announced that I was leaving, Channel 8, and the Mavericks were in the finals in 2006. We won 2 games here, and we went and lost some games in Miami. It was really tough. We didn't win that one, but anyway, won in 2011 when I was out of the business. Like, dang. But I pitched stories that had nothing to do with basketball. I was like, I can't remember the player's name, but he had like a foundation. Mark Cuban had a foundation, so I pitched charitable stuff.
Okay.
And they made people pitch so they could decide who would go. And then they picked me. And I was like, but I'm leaving. You should give this to somebody who's staying. No, we want you to go. So I got to go to Miami, and I got to sit down with Mark Cuban. He had a charitable foundation for wounded soldiers.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was called. So he went and interviewed one of the wounded soldiers who benefited from his organization, interviewed him, and he was doing no interviews at the time. Mark Cuban of the old days would say stuff that would get him in trouble. And so he put himself on a gag order.
He needed media training.
But I messaged his brother. His brother answered me back, said he'll do it. He'll sit down with you to talk about what I can't think of the organization. But and so we sat down and we talked about veterans and wounded soldiers, and
wow, that's cool.
Was great. and then he walked right out and took himself off the gag order because all the reporters were like, how is she? All the sports reporters, how is she getting this interview? Because we were doing it in the stadium, and so that was special. That was special getting to sit down with him. He was very down to earth.
That's
The
awesome.
first celebrity I ever interviewed was Richard Dreyfuss, and I'm a
Oh,
big
really?
Jaws.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
so nervous. That was back in my 20s, and oh my God, is Richard? He was doing Bands Across America for Mr. Holland's Opus. And he
Okay.
was going around promoting bands and keeping the music departments inside schools. And so we had a big competition in Indianapolis, and they said, "You're going to sit down with Richard Dreyfuss." And I was like, and it was live. And I kept looking at the monitor because, on TV, you have monitors down there to see yourself. And I
Uh-huh.
couldn't look at him. And he finally put his hand on my knee. Like, it's okay. And I was like, okay, I
Oh,
better look at him.
that's so great.
He was great. I got
Oh,
to
wow.
interview Oprah.
You did?
It wasn't as great as people would think it was.
Okay.
I was I didn't get to sit down with her. That was our main anchor got to do that, Macy Jepson,
Okay.
one of our main anchors. But I got to stand in a line of other reporters where you could ask her 3 questions and she would come down the line, and that was pretty cool.
Nice.
But the crime stories in Indianapolis that I covered, the drug trade was changing hands at the time in the late 90s.
Okay.
And there were a lot of the murder rate was going up, and we weren't used to that in Indianapolis. The crack cocaine trade was crazy. They were shooting people and burning up bodies.
Holy
And
cow.
yeah, it was nuts. And so getting that experience and being there with the cops and doing all that, I like that. I loved covering the crime beat. It was good. And there were some stories that I covered of victims that I kept in touch with the families for many years.
Really?
Oh
wow.
So it was that was interesting. That was
I
really
bet.
interesting.
So now you've made your way out, and now you've got this contract position at Cash America.
Yes.
What year was that?
That was 2007. I started contracting April of 2007 and got hired on full time in July.
Oh, it didn't take long for Dan to come around.
No, but I was working, Vic. I was on that 9th floor. I was like, goodness, Nightline, please. Wall Street Journal, please. All these things that I made happen for the company, and then building the PR, and then eventually traveling with Mary to DC to do government relations. But the business was great. I got to work with people, executives like you. I mean, every executive I worked with was top notch.
That's great.
And it was one of those jobs that every day, and I kid you not, every day I would wake up and be excited to go into the office.
It was a great place.
It was magical.
It was a great
magical
place.
Culture.
In a very misunderstood business.
Yes. And a hard to defend business.
Yeah.
And I was
hard to defend, very misunderstood. Yeah.
I was fighting for the underdog.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Right. I understand. But, I told this a couple of times on the podcast. I mean, I didn't have a colleague around me when I suggested that this was where I was going to go that thought it was a good idea. And after meeting some of the team, I just got a sense, and, it's a publicly traded company, right? So it's like everything's above board, and, we've got all these, audits going on, and accounting and public reporting, and, and I'm like, how could you can't exist in that framework and be bad, right? You're just going to get clobbered. And then there all the government regulatory stuff around what was going on there. And my gut just told me this would be a cool experience. But I got to get in touch with a side of America that I was distant from.
Same here.
I was distant from, what they call the unbanked community. And, and I told story, people get sick of it, but I won't go through it again I saw something in somebody having a need that just seemed for me like I would have 20 people I could go to for that help. Friend, mother, father, aunt, uncle, cousin, like somebody within my first or second degree of separation easily.
Yes.
Oh, $75? No problem. Yeah. Oh, you can pay me back Friday? Here you go. Cool. Right. This is what people were up against.
Yes.
And the word I'm looking for, the appreciation for this situation, as these weren't, largely tens of thousands of dollars worth of loans. This is $75,
Small dollar.
$100, and it's just a gap stop. Get to the next place. Get to the next place. And to do that with compassion, and to not make people feel like they're less, and to do that with a heart, and to do that. Yeah, I watched the pawnbroker relationships with the regular customers. They were fun.
They were touching.
They were fun. They were friendly. It was a cool relationship. And much like the barbershop, people would hang out.
Yeah.
Right? People would hang out, and
And
life stories would
name.
get changed.
Yeah.
They knew you by name. So you're there, you got hired full time.
I did.
And what was the charge?
Well, it was protect the reputation and image, get us some brand awareness. Try to position our company and our services as something that's good. Here are some facts. I mean, the one fact that sticks with me on Pawn is, even still to this day, that 80% of the people come back and get their things.
Yep.
That was like the most shocking.
You and me
People,
both.
you just go to the pawn shop and you hawk, right? You hawk the goods, and you don't come back for them, and they sell them, and that's what happens. And I'm like, no, this TV is someone's credit card.
That's
you
right.
use your credit card, don't you? Nobody gets on you about that.
Nope.
Why can't Vic use his TV and pawn it over and over and over again for gas? I remember we did the story with Nightline. We were the lead stories before you got hired. Lead story on Nightline when it was still great, a great show. I don't know if anybody watches Nightline anymore, but I remember being in the shop and doing those stories, and them being so in awe of the relationships you speak of.
Yeah.
That, oh my
really,
God,
they
and
were.
the compassion behind the counter and the care for the customer. And it wasn't popular with my family. I mean, I'm going to work for the pawn shop company, from this prestigious news where I'm on the air, and you're like a local celebrity or whatever, and you go to and you work and you defend pawn, and then you add on the payday loan world, and it just, why in the world would you do this? I'm like, I couldn't imagine being anywhere else, because we were allowed to create, to develop, to dream. We were given the resources. We were given the leadership. And I mean, we had leaders who were behind us. And I mean, you and I would go to lunch every quarter. What you working on? What can I help you with? I'm like, Vic, I need some help with this. And so it was a magical place. And I did some great work there, learned how to manage people, made a lot of mistakes there, Vic. I was an immature leader. I was an immature leader, hiring people. Didn't know how to take it when people left. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You want to go to a different department? No. Next thing I know, Clint James is
clicking into your
Yolanda
office.
just revert back to news days. Yes, she did. Yes, she did. And I had to render some apologies, but I got better at it.
Okay.
And I became a heck of a mentor and a leader. And
if all the lessons were easy, we wouldn't learn them.
Oh man. Some I was just embarrassed by. I'm like, gosh, and so I take that into account and give that grace to people who are fresh leaders, new leaders, because I'm like, oh, I see it in your eyes. I know where you're headed.
Yeah, there it is.
Don't do it. I promise.
What's so funny is that, gosh, I bet you my grandfather would tell the same stories about my dad. My dad would tell the same stories about me. I'm going to tell the same stories about my kids. And you would think after 4 or 5 generations that somebody would finally go, I don't need to smash my head on that wall. Like the 5 generations before me did that. But there is something about coming into your own, becoming your own person, that sometimes you need a harder lesson. My father would always say about me, I'm the middle child, so different than my brother and sister, is that he would say in simple terms, you're the only one that takes my advice. And so I listened to him. And early on, I thought about, I didn't have the quote, success leaves clues, but I was like, I did model success. I would look at people who were successful and try to do those things, and gosh, one of my first suit jobs, I call it, is when I worked at Lehman Brothers, and we were suits 5 days a week.
Wow.
And I was paying attention even to the suits the most successful were wearing.
Wow.
Were you wearing a white shirt? What colored tie were they wearing? Did they put on a colored shirt and create
Yeah.
a ensemble, right? How
Yes.
did that? Oh yeah, well, that guy. Well, his eyebrows are a little bushy, but other than that, he looks like $1,000,000.
He
And
looks
so,
great.
yeah, and so I'm like, all right, I'm that guy, right? And then you start picking up on language patterns.
Yeah.
And you start picking up on a process of, whether it be reviewing a budget or analyzing a project or selecting a partner
Sure.
or even hiring somebody.
Mhm.
And then you start watching the other side about, because early on, if I had hired somebody and they left, I probably would have taken it personally.
That's exactly what I did.
Right.
Mhm.
But you learn is that, like, your job as a leader is to elevate that person. And
Yes.
ultimately, that elevation either means they have your job
Uh-huh.
or they have a job like yours elsewhere.
Yes.
Right. They can't, if you're not doing that, then you're not
Mhm.
really doing what you're supposed to do
Sure.
in a leadership role. But,
Absolutely.
I could have read that in a book. Maybe it would have hit me. I don't know.
Yeah.
It did hit me at some point.
Mhm.
As I watched other people.
Sure.
I watched other people.
You said something real interesting. I had to think back, in radio, I always dressed like I was on television, even though you couldn't see me. Because the news stations would come up from Indianapolis. We had two big automakers there. They would go on strike regularly.
Okay.
So they would come up, or we would have a court case that was really interesting. And so I always put the suit on, dressed like I was in TV.
Yeah.
Recorded the newscast and went back and broke down the same story. So we're covering the same story. How did they visualize the story versus me doing it for voice and for the ear? They were doing it for ear, eye, and all.
Yeah.
And even though I learned those things in college, because we had a great program, seeing it play out in real life was different because it was real.
Just when my son played baseball as a little kid, 8 years old, there was one dad who was always screaming on the sidelines. And he'd
Wasn't
yell,
you?
I'll leave all the names out. He'd yell at his son, act like you've been there. Act like you've been there. And he yelled that game after game after game after game.
Wow.
And, and he was just trying to boost his confidence, maybe not with the best approach,
Sure.
but he was basically saying, like, don't be afraid and dress for the part you want, dress for success, there is something interesting that's going on that I think, and I don't know what's causing it. And I don't want to use any derogatory terms, so I'm going to choose my words real carefully. But I think people coming up into the professional world right now somewhat have the sequence of success a little backwards.
Okay.
In my opinion. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're describing a sequence of success that is very much in line with exactly how I was raised, what my experience proved to be true, what I thought, what I shared with others, which is do the job you want, right? Be in that position before somebody says, Yolanda, you're in this position. Like, you need to let people see you doing that job in that position so that they can have oh, wow, Yolanda is perfect for that job. So I took every assignment, every responsibility, everything I wore. I tell a story all the time on the podcast that when the office cleared out on Thursday nights to the bar next door and everybody was drunk and doing stupid stuff, I never went. And people are like, how come you don't go? I said, these people are going to work for me someday.
I know that.
And I can't be the guy who was, puking in the bushes, because I had too much drink on Thursday night. And then I had to figure out how to get home before there was Uber. Right.
Yeah.
And then they're going to work for me and they're going to look me sideways. So I wasn't unfriendly about it.
Sure.
I was like, nah, I'm cool, but in my head, I'm like, I have to elevate myself before anybody elevates me. And so you describe this beautiful, innate sense you had to wear the clothes, put on the persona, speak the language, do the job, before you had it. Where'd that come from? Like, how'd you figure that out? Was that just DNA?
Because I wanted it,
Okay.
I wanted it, and I credit some of the professors that we had in college. I mean, we had people who had worked in the industry or still working in the industry, and so they poured into us. And so I thought, gosh, I wanted television, and I wanted to believe. Sometimes you just make believe, right? I'm a reporter just like them. I just have
Yeah,
a recorder versus a TV camera,
totally. Yeah.
So, or video camera. So it was, and I wanted them to see, it's one of those things still. I wanted them to see me. So when I do get there, it won't be such a surprise,
Oh,
how did
yeah.
she get here? Or maybe that's my contact in. And this is all that this person stands between me and a news director, or me and
Yeah.
a executive producer, or me and so I always wanted to present well. Always did.
I'm tough on my kids on this
Mhm.
topic. They've had some jobs where they're working for entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
not working for a big company where you get lost in 200,000
Sure.
employees or there's some process there.
Mhm.
They come home with complaints. And of course I would listen. And, but mostly, and they were young. Like I have 3 kids. My oldest is
Right.
married. Taylor is living in Mexico City with her husband. They're doing
Okay.
great. My middle son is in social media. He's a content creator and a social media manager for a very seasoned golf teaching professional who's
Nice.
got very big pros on his roster. And
Mhm.
my youngest is finishing her last year of school, but she's also a full-time esthetician.
Wow.
And so my kids, less my older daughter now, but more my son and my daughter would say, work for so-and-so. Can you believe they did this? They did that. Oh, they don't know how to run a business. I mean, they're experts, right? It's their first or second job. And all of a sudden they know everything. And I would always say, hey, when you left work tonight, what were you thinking about?
Mhm.
Blank stare, blank stare. What were you
Okay.
thinking about? And I go, well, let me tell you what they're thinking about. I said,
Mhm.
and I can give you that perspective because these are the things having been in my own business for 8 years. And I even thought about it back when I worked at corporate America, because it's just the way I operated, but more so now. Payroll, clients,
Sure. Sure.
rent,
Mhm.
insurance,
Yeah.
new business,
Mhm.
old business, contract renewals, products, services, the coffee machine, the
Mhm.
cleaning crew. I mean, you can talk to any entrepreneur, you go on for a mile.
Sure.
But the people who work there with all the judgment
Mhm. Have no
don't have
clue.
an appreciation for how hard it is
Mhm.
to be an entrepreneur, to run a small business, to
Yeah.
grow it. And a lot of people they do it badly. But it's not because they want to do it badly. It's
Mhm.
because, first of all, they had the guts to go out there and say, I'm going to start a business.
Mhm.
Some have a natural acumen to it and pick
Sure.
up things. Some people deploy these operating systems. There's one out there called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS.
Mhm.
Teaches people how to really grow their business. I know a
Okay.
lot of people have had success with it. And some people, find other mentors or have a natural acuity to it. But
Sure.
most are, you know, getting their shins all knocked in and, scuffing up their knees and cutting holes in their suit pants, trying to get there.
Yeah.
Um, the thing that I get mostly from this part of our conversation is that you really enlisted that. Act like you've been there, dress for the job you want, all the things we could say that most people might not listen to. But I believe
Mhm.
that they hold true today. These are the elements that will separate even further than
For
ever
sure.
before, will separate people from a level of success and accomplishment to not being able to achieve.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in that space?
I think you hit on a good point, and I also see, I wasn't, even when I got promoted to VP at Cash America, I wasn't chasing that. I wasn't chasing the title. I wanted to do the best that I could. In fact, when Mary sat down and said, "Hey, what you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm, working on," I go through my list, and she's
Yeah.
like, she pulls up this slide deck and it's all about my promotion. And I'm like, "Oh, who's asking for this?" Kind of like,
Yeah.
but I mean,
Wow.
I'm thinking this to myself because have I accomplished everything as a director that I wanted to accomplish? And then I thought, well, that lasts for 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. And
As the
then you're looking
numbers
for the
come,
S.
the numbers and
Yeah.
the perks, and you're like, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Um, And I'm not going to question what she sees in me versus what, no, because she can see farther. She's outside looking in. She knows, good talent when she sees it. I'm not gonna go against that. And so I just put my head down and worked. And I think what's missing in the generations that are coming up now, they're on a time. Well, I've been here for X.
Yeah.
I should deserve, and that never was me. I could have said, "Oh, I want to chase the anchor desk." I never chased the anchor desk. I just wanted to be a good reporter. And doesn't mean I didn't see heights. I put in my succession planning that I want to be a VP someday. It just came faster than I thought it would.
Right.
And then I looked back and I'm like, gosh, I was a director for 5 years. So, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's time. I think it's maturity. I think it's, and so, have I done enough in this role? And I've always promoted, and I've gotten the opportunities you have to promote people. And I've always promoted the ones who keep their heads down and do the work.
Yeah.
Not the ones who are constantly in my office feeling
Telling you why
entitled
they needed the promotion and the title.
Yeah.
I always remember I was working in Colorado at the time, and I had a guy chasing me for a VP title. Like you had like nobody's business. Super talented guy.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Lehman Brothers thing, and at Lehman Brothers, you did get promoted pretty quickly, but there was a time component
Mm-hmm.
to being in a prior role.
Okay.
It was small,
Mm-hmm.
but if you were promoted to like an AVP,
Sure.
we didn't have a director level. The next role at that particular company was a VP.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted that VP title so bad. He had just been promoted to AVP. And finally, I said to him, I don't understand. What is it about the VP title that you want so badly? Like, what is it? Is it a plaque? Is it recognition? Like, I'm trying to figure out what I'm not giving this person. And he said to me, I want to get to the next level in compensation. It's about money.
It was about money, the dollar.
It was just about money. And I said to him, do you understand where you work? I said, this is a Wall Street company. I said, if you do a great job delivering the project you're delivering right now, title is not going to get in the way of the suitcase size you need to bring home your bonus. We're going to pay the snot out of you.
Yeah.
Okay? This is about, getting the job done.
Mm-hmm.
Rest assured, at the end of the year, if you deliver this project, you are going to be very, very happy, probably beyond what you're even thinking.
Sure.
And he came to me in January after his, he didn't directly report to me. He reported to somebody else who ultimately reported to me. And when everybody gave the bonus numbers out, he knocked on my door and he said, you're the first person in my entire professional life who delivered on something that they promised me. He goes, and I did my part. You just told me to put my head down and get the work done. And I said, all year long, you might work for me. I said, but there is a couple days a year that I work for you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and figuring out how to pay you for your success is one of those days.
Yeah, that's great.
I work for you that day.
That's great. And
I said, and hopefully I met your expectations. He said, I don't want to tell you this, but you doubled them. And I said, well, great. I said, are you still worried about title? He says, not right now. Take your time.
Yeah.
But it was a very prideful moment for me.
Sure.
Especially when people tell you, you kept your word, you made a difference in their life. But I think it also set an example for others. Sure. Because a lot of other people received, good, successful compensation. It was 2006. It was just, things in the mortgage business were great. They were great.
Oh, yeah, they were great.
Oh, yeah. 06 were great. 7, 8 were just the 7, we saw it coming. 8 is like hit on the chin. It was bad. But 06, man, 05, 06, fantastic times.
Flying high.
Big time. Hey, when we started the reacquaintance before we actually started recording tonight, you told me about some other things you were doing.
Yes.
And I would like to explore those things. Why don't you tell the audience, the other dimension of Yolanda here?
Sure. I think it's important. I always tell people I love my job. I love working. I love corporate America. I'm one of those weird people who just loves corporate America, but it's not my happy place. It's a different level of passion. But then I have another passion, And that's mentorship, which really came out of the leadership of being in corporate America as mentorship. And I went through a really tough year in 2013. I can't remember if you were at Cash America at that time, but it was just a series of
I was,
bad.
no, was I there? Yeah, I
Were
was
you
there.
there? You were
I
there.
was there.
It was just a series of things in
I wouldn't
personal
have known
life.
it, by the way.
Yeah, no, professional life. I had a
Yeah.
great performance year that year,
Yeah.
but personally, there were some things that happened, and I felt like, I mean, never to the point where I was depressed and I'm getting ready to end this all. I would never
Yeah.
do that. I'm strong in faith, and that's not an outlet for me. But I felt a downward spiral. I'm single. I mean, it's just I'm dating every wrong person ever, and all this
Okay.
stuff, and I was like, I felt like God just shook me and said, get your stuff together, and I'm like, oh, I better get myself together,
Okay.
because where is 26-year-old Yolanda and 22-year-old Yolanda? And so I had to reach back and find that strength and confidence again that I let other people define for me. The
Okay.
first time in my life I ever let people define that for me.
Very hard.
And it didn't last long, Vic. I got myself together and I developed this curriculum for myself to get
Okay.
myself back on track. And then I was telling my pastor's wife about it, and she says, "Hey, you've got to teach this." I was teaching singles at the church because I was single at the time. I was a
Okay.
serial single person, and I was
Okay.
great in my singleness. I just kept meeting the wrong person, but I liked being single. I mean, it was, and then so many years I was single by choice
Okay.
because I was engaged and that broke up, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna, be single for a while. And but I was at a point in my singleness where I felt like I could teach the singles how to be, how to stand in their season, even though I'm dating these losers, people who did not deserve my time.
Yeah. Okay.
But I let them in as just an insecure moment. They just came into my life, and their shouts were very loud, and I
Okay.
listened. And so I got back on track, and I began to teach, and then I began to mentor. And I began to really mentor. I mean, I have a lot of mentees. And so
Okay.
to the tune of one year I taught the class, and I took 15 millennials up underneath my wing for a year. And we
Wow.
met every month with different topics that we would talk about.
One-on-one or as a group?
I did one-on-one dinners with
Okay.
each of them. It was 15, but we met as a group once a month.
Okay.
And then twice during that year, I took them on one-on-one. So imagine 15 dinner. I'm at dinner Tuesday, Wednesday.
That's busy.
Yeah, it was busy, but
Okay.
the social person, remember?
Yeah, exactly. You're in your wheelhouse right there.
Yeah, and I wanted to give them my undivided attention to find out what was going on in their lives. And so that was 2017 to 2018. They were all hostesses at my wedding. It was great.
Oh, it's great.
They're my daughters that I never had, and I keep in touch with about half of them.
Okay.
And then some of the other half will cycle around every now and then, but
Okay.
constant contact. And they've gone on to get married and start families, and and so I'm Mama Yo. So that's and Papa Ray. My husband's Papa Ray, and I'm Mama Yo.
Let me tell you something. You have that I will never refer to you as anything else from this moment on.
Mama Yo.
Mama Yo.
Mama Yo.
I am hooked. That is
That's
it.
so funny.
That's
So it's
great.
like it's God has a sense of humor. I never had birthed my own kids, but I have all these kids, all these daughters, and it's just been great. And even mentors my own age, they'll come to me, and I don't have all the answers, Vic. I get it wrong. I make mistakes.
Yeah.
But I do share with them what has helped me. And so that's my calling, is seeing women empowered, seeing them live to the best of their ability, not an ability, but their ability.
Yeah.
Within their potential. And seeing them weather the storm. I talk about this great career, great life, great childhood, but there are storms in there.
Of course.
There are storms in there,
Of course.
and,
Whose life is without him?
Yeah, they're there.
Whose life was without him? I was recently at a school function for my nephew.
Mm-hmm.
He's part of a sports team. He was on the golf team. And the coach said something so profound. I hadn't heard it put this way before. And he was basically, wishing the seniors who were moving on into college or into the next phase of their life, was wishing them well. And he said, hey, listen, I want to tell you something right now. He said, everybody thinks life gets easier. It doesn't. You get better at hard. You get
Ooh, I like
better at
that.
hard. And
Get
here I
better at
am,
hard.
just turned 60. Yep, keeping it tight. Thank you very much.
Hey,
Um,
good. I'm 52
just,
next month. So
oh man, just turned 60 and I'm like, son of a gun. Here comes another lesson.
yeah, they
Here
don't
comes
stop.
another lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't stop if you're open to receiving them. And so, boy, I just thought about that for a second. Life doesn't get easier. You get better at hard.
I'm using it, stealing it.
You can take it. And it came from Coach Glenn at
Okay.
South Lake Carroll. Golf had a golf there.
Wow.
Boy, it was phenomenal. It was
That's
absolutely
profound.
phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought so. And you know what? You get things when you need them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because, being in my own business and having kids and
Mm-hmm.
all the things are going on and, life's ups and downs, lefts, rights, you're dealing with clients, all this stuff. And you're like, hey, most of my life is great, but there's some hard in there. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is one of those times I just need to get better.
Yep.
Right? I'm not going to fold. I'm not going to go in a spiral.
Yep.
And I'm going to go back to something else. And I wrote it down here and I didn't get to unpack it with you and I don't want to lose it.
Sure.
You talked about having other people dictate your worth or your value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yes. Because in the dating world, I have the confidence, but I'm not Beyonce. I'm not the prettiest girl in the, I
Says
don't
who?
have the best,
Says who?
you listen. Exactly. Well, I know that now, but
Yeah.
and so it's one of those things where you start to listen to the lies, and you write the story. So Vic could say something to me and I've written a story based on what he said, and that's not even what he meant.
Ah, okay.
And so and I'm basing my worth off the story because he said this, and I'm like, oh man, you can't get caught up in that.
Yeah.
And it didn't, like I said, for me, for women I mentor, it lasts longer. For me, it only took a second for me to reaffirm that, I know who I am in Christ and
Yeah.
fearfully and wonderfully made and all those different things. But I lost it for a time.
Okay.
It's like I just lost it for a season, and I can't think of anything specific that they did. I think it was mostly me doing it to myself.
It always is.
And taking something that someone said or a reaction or, I studied in, nonverbal communication in college. So I'm like, I'm reading, oh, his eyes are going left. And,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if you don't turn it off, it's like, and so before I knew it, I was writing these stories that weren't true. And I was believing, you're not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not worthy. You're not, all those different things. You're going to be alone for the rest of your life. And you're going to, all those different things that can creep in. And I'm like, no, I'm confident. I'm determined. And I'm, and it's like I'm whispering it and all the other stuff is shouting. And I'm trying to whisper back, and man, it was not good.
Wow.
And I was looking for worth in someone else's opinion of me.
Very common.
Man,
Very common.
and I was like,
and it's a dangerous trap.
Who is this person?
It's a dangerous
and I felt
trap
weak in the process. I felt like Superman and Kryptonite. I felt powerless.
Yeah.
But I had to decide. Until I decided, okay, look back over life. Your dad never told you that. Your brothers never treated you that way. Your mom never treated your grandfather. Where are you? Why is this loser the one who's dictating?
There's an incongruency in my story here.
But that's the only word I can think of right now. So.
But this leaks over into professional behaviors as well, because it's very easy professionally. We've all had great mentors and bosses, and we've come across some pretty crappy ones too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy in those situations, especially when you're adulting and you've got responsibilities and bills and, in some cases, children and all of these ancillary or extended family, whatever your extra responsibility. I've yet to meet anybody. Well, I've met a few, but in the tens of thousands of people I've met, I could probably count on one hand the amount of people that their thing is their thing and they got nothing else that they're participating in, helping somebody doing something. And when you have that, there's a lot on the line in your professional career. And it's very, very easy, either via a project failure or a bad call in business or in something you tried that didn't work out. It's very easy for us because everybody tries, start pointing the fingers and doing all this stuff and they play the blame game. And you could easily get caught up in, hey, this particular, I love what you said, season. Love that. I'm going to steal that, by the way. This particular season of my life didn't go really great, but that doesn't redefine what's in the bank.
Yes.
There was someone at Cash America who worked for me. Who I think I helped come out of a very negative shell. And I'm going to leave the names out. But this person did all these great things. This person was promoted beyond their wildest expectations, elevated, all these great things. This person's demeanor had changed so much throughout the organization that people in HR, Sandy and Clinton, everybody going like, what are you feeding her? Like, what did you do to this person? This person is 180 from where they were. And riding high, things going great. Hiccup. Something doesn't go great. Comes into my office like real defeated, like thinks they're going to get fired. And I said, what's going on? What's happened? Okay. All right. Let's figure out what we're going to do about that. Yep. Got it. Okay. You're not mad at me? Why would I be mad at you? You're not going to fire me? I go, work and relationships look much like your bank account. When you make lots of deposits, every now and then you take a withdrawal. It's okay. It's fine. Person looked at me like mind blown, but this is how it's easy. I'm tying this story back. This is how it's easy for your value and worth to get collapsed at a moment during a season. And for anybody listening to this podcast, you should take Yolanda's advice, which is go back in time. Think about when in my, and this can work both ways, by the way. This is really a very powerful thing you unleashed here, Yolanda. You go back in time. When else did this happen in my life? So if I'm this great person, I'm doing these great things and I'm learning and I'm open and I'm learning lessons, but the people around me really have, materially reacted very positive to me. And I have this one instance where all of a sudden it's not, I'm going to offer some grace to that person because it's not me. On the other hand, if you keep smashing your head up against the wall, take the same actions. When else has this appeared in my life? It happened here, it happened there. Oh, I better start doing something different, right?
Sure.
And so thank you for that. You just unleashed something so powerful here that I think is a big lesson about really evaluating, much like a financial chart. It's like an EKG, goes up and down. If you looked even at the Dow since 2008, way down here, all up, down, but pretty much, that trend line going in the right direction. We all have a trend line, and we're all not going to always be on the rise. There are going to be some things where we're going to take it on the chin for sure. Hey, I have a question about your mentorship and the things that you learned. Is there some commonality in the things people need?
Yep.
And the things that maybe you've provided, a lens into?
It is worth.
Oh.
And it is when the tough times happen, a lot of women that I've mentored don't see the end.
Okay.
And I give them this pouch at the beginning of class. The class is called I Surrender because you need to just surrender everything and and start over, right? And start walking in a different light. It says, storms don't last 365 days of the year. They come to pass, not to
Yeah.
stay. And if I can impart that into a woman, that yes, there are going to be times when, it's going to be tough. There will be tough times, but how you respond, react, whether, I'm not in the best season right now, to be honest with you. I don't like this season. However, I know on the other side of this season is going to be something magnificent, and it cycles. And I don't get wrapped up in I don't like this season. How am I going to make it through? I need the strength to get through this season. And then it's worth. It is just life beating you down one thing after another, and not having the outlet. Like I tell people, get a hobby. Find a happy place. Do not wrap your identity into people. Do something that brings you joy, passion. Find your purpose.
Yeah.
You know what you don't like to do.
God bless you.
Thank you. You know what you don't like to do.
Yeah.
So tell me what you like to do. What lights up when you talk about it?
Do more of it.
And do more of it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be some big, I think people think their worth and their purpose is in some big, for me, it's the I Surrender ministry. For you, it might be just a random act of kindness. It doesn't have to be this big thing, organized and orchestrated, and it could be very small things.
Well, if it means anything to you, if God bless you, if this means anything to you, and I hope it does, you get what you get when you need it the most. Yeah. And some people believe that's a God-given thing, and some people believe in the universe, and some people think in coincidence, and some people think it's dumb luck. And as I promised you at the top here, I wasn't going to get in either one of those topics. So whoever's listening, you can choose your source of whichever works for you. I have my own.
Yes.
But this season thing is you've mentored me tonight. You've mentored me tonight, and these are the things that, I reaffirm to myself every day. I had a friend call me once and say, "You are the most positive mofo." Didn't say mofo. He goes, "I just don't know how you do it. Every time I'm clicking something on social media, you got some positive quote going on, and it's a battle cry, and you're charging. Like, I wake up, I barely can get out of bed. Like you're starting the day like this." He goes, "Man, I don't know how you do it. What are you drinking?" And I said, "Hey, we've been friends for a long time, haven't we?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, 40 years, right? And I said, "And I guess we've never talked about it." I said, "But I'm going to let you in on a little secret. When I post something like that, it's for me. I'm not trying to motivate others. I'm trying to publicly lift myself up and make myself accountable to the standard of that post." And so now when I post something, instead of thinking I'm that uber positive mother, he'll text me, go, "Hey, you okay? Everything cool?
Nice.
Need to chat? We're good, right?"
Sure.
Because he knows now. Well, now the universe knows, but it's okay. It's okay. But
you're going to have a million messages tomorrow.
I hope to have a million messages. But the point is that you lift yourself up through these things, and they're going to be seasons, and you come back around. But you said worth, man. That's just. I'm not surprised, but I'm blown away. But I'm blown away, and the things, and this is going to be for our next time we talk. And when we're done with this, we're going to stick around and talk about when that's going to be, because this has been the greatest hour and 20 minutes of my entire year. And I mean that sincerely. The cause of that lack of worth is going to be a whole exploration. And I think that topic is valuable. And it's not only, Yolanda, and I applaud you for your focus on women and women that need it. This is humans.
Absolutely.
Like, humans need this. There are so many people that have a rudder that's cracked or broken or rudderless. There are so many people trying to figure out something complex in their life, and the solution is so simple. The best solutions are in simplicity, not in things complex.
Sure.
And so for anybody listening tonight, and I do have predominantly, if you look at my stats, a predominantly male audience, which is like, I got to get me some women. I need more women on this show. Who do I know is articulate? I'm calling Yolanda, but I've got more great women coming on the show.
Good.
I've had some great women on the show. I had Chrissy Perham, who's a Olympic gold medalist. I mean, that was just a really great time. I've got a bunch of women CEOs coming on the show. Really, it's been great, but this isn't everybody thing. Mm-hmm. This isn't, you've tapped into, you've really taken what I want to do on this podcast and brought it to the next level with me tonight. Yay. And I can't thank you enough for that.
You're welcome.
Have anything you want to say in closing? Any pearls you might want to drop down? Anything, what are you thinking about today to lift yourself up?
You know, the one thing that I would say, if there's a pearl I could drop, is don't let anyone decide how great you are. And every panel that I do, I mention that. When you start letting other people define your greatness, then it's not self-esteem anymore, is it? It's something else.
No, it's not.
And I just refuse I'm getting ready to be 52 next month. I refuse at this point in my life to allow anyone to define that for me. You don't get to decide. Because first of all, I'm looking at the judge, I'm like, who made you the judge?
Yeah.
But then again, if you want to tell me I'm great,
I'll say thank you.
I'm all for that one. But you don't get to decide if I'm great or not.
Yeah. And for those who might not know you or gotten the chance to know you like I have, what you're hearing here right now is not arrogance. And there's a big difference between arrogance and confidence.
Yes.
And this it's supreme confidence.
Yes.
Is what it is. It's confidence. And that, from what I'm hearing, what you're saying is like, that's got to be in your gut. Yes. And to your point, confidence, understanding there are seasons or the EKG, right? This too shall pass. Like all of these things coming on. But that's powerful. And that's a great message for people. And I'm with a smile, a great place for us to wrap this evening. Great. Yolanda, thank you so much for coming on tonight. And I think there's a lot more of this in our future.
Yes.
And if you stick around a little bit, I want to talk to you about that. So thank you so much. Have a great evening.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, folks. Thanks for tuning into the show. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, the Podcast Index, and Podcasting 2.0. We'd really appreciate if you download Fountain, find us there, and support us via Value for Value. We hope you enjoy the show. Happy listening.